So what do you get when you have a world filled with humans, demi-humans, and demons? A god who toys with all the races and uses them to instigate religious wars, and a band of ancient magic users who plan on fighting back against the injustice of this world and the so-called god. That's right, you have Arifureta Zero, the prequel to Arifureta from Commonplace to World's Strongest. And today I'm going to discuss the first 3 volumes with you. Hello everybody, it's Stephen, and today I'm going to be going over the first 3 volumes of Arifureta Zero. I've just finished volume 3 and I'm just about to start volume 4. I thought I'd give a quick rundown on the first 3 volumes and then maybe look at doing a review on the 4th one later down the line. So let's get started. Arifureta Zero, volume 1. As I said, this is a prequel to the original Arifureta from Commonplace to World's Strongest. In this first book, we follow Miledi Reisen as she is travelling across the world trying to find other ancient magic users in order to bring them all together to fight the evil god of this world. In the first part of this book, she comes across Oscar Orcus. He's a Synergist user. A Synergist is somebody who creates artifacts. He's actually an orphan and he doesn't actually want anything to do with her and her plans on fighting back against God. He just wants to live a normal life. Unfortunately, when he comes to the attention of the church, they attack his family, which brings him into the fight. Now, with another ancient magic user on her side, they start their journey throughout the world to find other ancient magic users that she's heard about. In the second part of this book, they travel to the Great Desert. Here, they're looking for a guy called Naiz, who's actually a spatial magic user. They've heard tales of this wondrous person, saviour fairy of the desert, and they only can assume that he's actually an ancient magic user from the stories they've been told. So in the second half of the journey, we find them travelling and searching for him, and much like Oscar, he doesn't want anything to do with the cause either. Unfortunately, he is soon dragged into it because the church finds out about his powers and they want to control him and bring him over to their side by brainwashing him. He doesn't want anything to do with this and he fights back, and he soon ends up joining the Liberators. Book 1 was actually a very fun read. I really enjoyed it and it gives a good amount of backstory to the original Commonplace to World's Strongest series. You hear snippets in the main story about the Liberators, but you don't actually know too much about them. It's a good way to actually find out this kind of information and find out about their personalities, because in the original story you get ideas of what kind of person they could be, but this is actually putting more detail into it. It's keeping its freshness and unique approach to it, while also following the same kind of writing style that I loved in Arifureta from Commonplace to World's Strongest. Because of that, I've been really excited to read this series and see where it goes. Okay, book 2. So book 2 actually slows down the pace some compared to the first book. The first book showed Miledi as she recruited 2 ancient magic users into her cause. So book 2 slows down the story somewhat. So in this one, Miledi, Oscar and Naiz are actually looking for the Saint of the Sea, the ancient magic user Meiru. She turns out to actually be a pirate, a half-human, half-merfolk, and her ancient magic is that of restoration. In their journey, they find out that she has a sister who is being kept hostage by her father. Her father is actually the ruler of a settlement of humans and demi-humans that live out on the ocean, who are actually seen as outcasts and criminals by most of the other human race. Again, this book flowed quite well. I did find myself reading this one a lot slower, however, compared to the previous volume. Other than that, the story is actually well written, and there are a number of side stories at the very end, like there are with all of these books. It keeps up a good sense of humour, and the characters are really brought to life. Last but not least, number 3. So I just finished reading number 3 today. In this book, we find out that the Liberators base has actually been attacked, but at the last moment the Liberators were actually saved before they were killed by another ancient magic user called Van. He is actually a half demon, half dragonborn. He uses the Liberators as a sort of leverage to try and get Miledi, Oscar, Naiz and now Meiru on his side to come help his people out and himself, who's in a bind in the demon land. In this book we follow along the journey as they go to rescue not only their comrades but also to recruit and save Van and his clan. Again, this was a very interesting read, seeing who the Liberators were firsthand and how they interacted. We got snippets of their personality in the original Arifureta series and showing how they might be conflicts between the different Liberator. And in this one it goes into a lot more detail and we see the reasons why, and it goes into the personalities a lot more, which I find very interesting. Now, again, like the second one, I found this one very hard going as well. I'm still not 100% sure why, but I am finding it more difficult to get into this series as I'm going along with it, unlike I did with the original Arifureta. But it could be something to do with the side characters. While the main characters are all new and refreshing, the author has used some of the same tropes from the original Arifureta books in this series as well. So while the characters are different named, they have the exact same personality and the same traits. While the book itself is still fresh and these aren't exactly main plot points or main characters in the story, it is sort of creating this bit of deja vu when reading it. While they are funny, it is making it a bit harder to get into it, like I did the original series, because it feels like the same trope has been used over and over again. Anyway, as a series, I'd probably rate this about 3.5 out of 5, while I'd rate the original Arifureta series as a 4 to 4.5. While it's good, refreshing and interesting in certain places, as I said, it does follow some tropes from the original one where I think it didn't need to use these. But I think the author probably had in his mind that those were good funny bits in the original story, people really enjoyed them, so why not introduce them again? Unfortunately, you can be a bit too repetitive with this one, and I don't think it quite pulled off as well. Anyway, I'm going to be starting book 4 shortly, and then from that I'm going to be going on to Shield Hero and Grimgar. So please look forward to one of those reviews coming shortly, and I'll see you in my next video.